Hello Legacy students. So today we're going to look at section 5.3, which is on slope-intercept form. This is probably review from 7th and 8th grade math. What you're going to want to have with you is notes, the foldable we made in class, pen and pencil, and then you may need a calculator, but it's kind of highly unlikely. So this video is going to focus on how to write a linear equation using slope and intercept form and how to graph a linear equation using slope and intercept form. So first of all, some vocabulary. A linear equation. A linear equation is an equation, shocker there, that when graphed creates a straight line. So it's going to create a straight line. This is the same as a linear function, if you remember when we talked about that in chapter 4. It's going to be the same exact thing. They're going to look the same. Now, a y-intercept, that's something a little bit new. This is where the linear equation crosses the y-axis. So that is where when you graph it, you hit on the y-axis. So it's, here's my equation, I'm graphing. So my y-intercept would be right there where my line is hitting the y-axis. Now, slope-intercept form, you're going to want to make sure this definitely gets into your notes. Y equals mx plus b. I'm pretty sure you've heard of that before. Now, your m is your slope of your line, which is what we covered in 5.1, and b is the y-intercept of the line. So now, let's identify the slope and y-intercept. These should be exceptionally easy. What are the slope and y-intercept of the graph y equals 5x minus 2? So, your slope is always what is in front of your x. So my slope on this one is whatever is in front of my x, which is 5. My slope is 5. My y-intercept now is the number that's alone, that is not multiplied by that x. So on this case, it is negative 2. So my slope is 5, my y-intercept is negative 2. That's all they're asking on these ones. Let's try this one. Slope, y-intercept. So, my slope is what's ever in front of the x, negative 1/2. And my y-intercept is the number that's alone, 2/3. Those should be exceptionally easy for you guys. So this is when you're going to want to grab out that foldable. If you remember, it had those 3 little flaps on it. We cut them and then it had information. So on the front where it's blank right now, you're going to want to write these 3 things on each one of those flaps. So your first flap should say given slope and y-intercept. Your next flap should say given slope and a given point, and given 2 points on the line. We did this in class, so you should have it written. If not, go ahead and pause the video and make sure you get this written on your foldable so you know what each flap is used for. Now, first flap, go ahead and open it up. On the left-hand side, you should see what is up on the top. So what do you do when you're given the slope and the y-intercept? You're going to want to use slope-intercept form, which is y equals mx plus b. Substitute the slope for the m, and substitute the y-intercept for the b. So here, they give me my slope, m, is negative 5/4, and my slope b, or my y-intercept, b, is 7. So on the right-hand side where you see this problem, we're going to work out the answer. So then you have notes on this foldable. So I'm going to use y equals mx plus b. So y equals mx plus b. Now, I'm going to plug in my m, or substitute it. Now, they said m was negative 5/4, so I have negative 5/4 x plus b. Next one, substitute your y-intercept, the b. So negative 5/4 x plus, what's my b? My b was 7. Done with that problem. These should be the easiest ones because they give you your y-intercept and your slope right off the bat. Now, go ahead and open your second flap of your foldable. Now, if you notice, this is what is on the left-hand side. The right-hand side, or the left-hand leftmost side. Notice how I have it split. We're not going to look at the right-hand side yet. That's going to be our next section after this one. So today, you're going to look at the left-hand side. So we're going to use, when we are given a slope and a point, we're going to use the slope-intercept form. Y equals mx plus b. We're going to take the slope and substitute it in for m. Now, the point they give you, let's say 5, 7. You're going to take those x and y values and put it into the equation. That's going to leave us only with b, because we don't know what b is. We're going to solve for b, and then substitute the values for m and b into y equals mx plus b. So let's actually try an example of this out. So on the right-hand side, you should be seeing this on the right-hand side of your foldable. So we're only going to do the left-hand side. The right-hand side, I will be showing you in a section or two. So on the left-hand side, we are going to use y equals mx plus b for this form. So I'm going to do y equals mx plus b. Now, if you remember, the first thing we gotta do, substitute for m. Looks like my m is negative 3. So I have y equals negative 3x plus b. So now I'm going to take this point and plug it in for x and y. So the 3 is x and the y is negative 1. Because remember, every coordinate point always is x comma y. So my y is negative 1. My x is 3. And I do not know b. So now what I can do is actually solve for b. So I have negative 1 equals negative 3 times a positive 3 gives me a negative 9. I still have this plus b tailing on the end. Now, how would I solve for b? I'm going to add 9 to both sides, right? Gets my b alone. So I'm going to get negative 1 plus 9, 8 equals b. So now I have my b and I have my m. So I'm going to take that and plug it into y equals mx plus b. That is my final answer for that one. Now, the final flap. Go ahead and open it. On the left-hand side, you should be seeing this that is on the screen. Now, we are only going to use, for this section, this information right here. I will be covering this stuff in section 5.4, if I remember right. So, what we're going to do when we're only given 2 points, we're first going to find the slope, just like we were doing in section 5.1. Then we're going to use slope-intercept form, substitute for m, substitute x and y of one of those points. It doesn't matter what point you pick. Solve for b, and then substitute the values of m and b into y equals mx plus b. So basically, after this point right here, we start flap 2 in all actuality. So let's go over to the right-hand side, and you should see write an equation of the line that passes through the given points 4, negative 1, and 6, negative 7. So just like we did before, we're just going to work on the left-hand side here. So first of all, I need to figure out my slope. So my first point, if you remember how to do slope, we're going to subtract our y's over subtract our x's. So I want to first designate he's x1, he's y1, he's x2, he's y2. So y2, negative 7, minus my y1, negative 1, all over x2, which is 6, and x1, which is 4. So I got -7 minus a -1. That becomes positive. When you have two negatives right beside each other, you get a positive number. So I have -7 plus 1. And -6 out of that deal. 6 minus 4, 2. -6 divided by 2, 3. So I know my slope now is 3. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to plug it into y equals mx plus b. Take my slope, plug it in for m. There we go. Now, I can pick either one of those points. I could pick this guy, or I could pick that way. I like to pick the smaller numbers, not as hard of math, if you know what I mean. So I want to pick this one. These are smaller numbers. So my x is 4, and my -1 is y. So I have -1 equals 3 times 4 plus b. Now, we want to solve for b. So I'm going to figure out what's 3 times 4, which is 12, and then solve for b. So I get a -13. Oh, hold on. I missed the negative on my 3. I should have a -3 for a slope. Didn't catch that. So -3 times 4, I should have a -12. So I'm going to add 12 to both sides. Just making sure you guys are paying attention here. So I should have a positive 11 for b. So I have my slope of -3 and b of positive 11, excuse me. So I should have y equals -3x plus 11 for my equation. So that is the different ways to write an equation given what you're given. Now, graphing linear equations. If there's one thing you need to make sure you learn how to do in Algebra 1 is graph a linear equation. You're going to be graphing linear equations forever in every single math class past this one. So, we need to graph y equals -3x plus 4. So, here's my steps to graphing. What I always do is I start with the y-intercept. Okay? From him, I use the slope to graph it. You only need 2 points to graph a line technically. Now, when using the slope, you're going to use your rise over run technique. So, first of all, let's start with my y-intercept. My y-intercept is the number alone, which is 4. So my y-intercept is at 4. So I'm going to put a dot right there at 4. Now, my slope is -3. So I'm going to go, if I change that into a fraction, it should be -3 over 1. So down 3 over 1. So I'm going to go down 3, because remember, it's rise over run, down 3, 1, 2, 3, over 1. Down 3, 1, 2, 3, over 1. Down 3, 1, 2, 3, over 1. And then I'm going to connect this line as well as I can. Whoa, that's a little off. There we go. You should be able to do it better on a piece of paper. So I have graphed my linear equation. Let's try again. So we have 2x minus 1. So remember, you're going to stare at your y-intercept first. My y-intercept, -1. So I have -1 right here. I'm going to put that as my point. Now, I'm going to use my slope. My slope, change it into a fraction. I have 2 over 1. So rise over run, rise 2, run 1. So I'm going to rise 2, 1, 2, run 1. Rise 2, run 1. Rise 2, run 1. Then I can graph my line. Something like that. That is how you graph a linear equation. We're going to practice this quite a bit just so we know how to do this, because like I said, this is a very important part of Algebra 1. That is the end of the notes tonight. See you later, Sabers.